worked for RCBS, reloading
Okay.
equipment,
Yeah.
and he was the foreman of the Wildcat dice section. Started when they first began in their machining area.
Hmm.
And when they'd come out with a new press or filler or whatever, they'd give him one, see if he could go and break it, see what their faults.
Yeah. Push the tolerances. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Well, I know who are the rough people on tools, so I know who to give them to for sure. Welcome everybody tonight to the ID Network get together. My name is Lou Jensen, and this is our weekly gathering. We get together every Wednesday night, and we've been doing it for 9 years. This is our ninth season. And the idea of the ID Network is inspiration and encouragement to try and help people discover they have some talent, first of all, develop that talent, do whatever it takes to master something, and then learn how to share it in the marketplace. And it started in 1983. I was a general practicing dentist and came up with the idea of building the dental drill as a straight design handpiece rather than the right angle that works well in the mouth. I couldn't make it do things that I wanted to do in my hobby of power carving. And so then came up with the idea of building a straight high-speed handpiece, and from the idea to the time we had a product and entered the marketplace was 8 years. It just takes forever to get things done when you've come up with something absolutely brand new. The measurement that most people don't realize, the equipment we're playing with is air-driven pneumatic tools, and the speed range is extremely high. If you're familiar with a Dremel tool or a Fordham type tool, they run at about 30,000 RPM and are electric driven, and we work with pneumatic that's up in the range of 500,000 RPM. We can make it go over 500,000, but that's not a good performance range. It wears things out too fast. So we try and keep it back in that 350 to 400,000 RPM. But all of who are participating with me tonight have had their equipment for years, and we've known each other for a very long time. I appreciate all of you taking your really valuable time to come and sit in with tonight's show. And I hope you've got the debate recorded. So when we get done here, we got to go see who beats up on who tonight. And fortunately, we don't have to put ourselves in that kind of position, which I'm kind of grateful for. The idea of starting something in 1983, that when I sat down and signed the papers to form the company, September the 12th, 1983, I had no idea the long-term range of things and how it's actually gone. I was discussing in the green room with everybody how much fun we had today working on brand new turbine and handpiece designs, and God, we got a lot done today. It was just exciting to participate with that. But to know how much time it takes to figure and make an idea actually work is commensurate with what it takes to make a business work. And as I would sell equipment and packages into the economy for 30 years, over 30,000 customers, we literally had so many people who just couldn't figure this out or couldn't figure that out, and struggled so much to try and figure out how to make something and then sell it in the marketplace. And some are very good at solving problems like that, but there's an awful lot of people who are not. So since the internet started to make this kind of a live action show or a movie or interview possible, then the training capacities have just now exploded. Just going in a direction where most of us can get help for just about everything we want to know, either on YouTube or on a live hangout like this. And that's got to be nothing but better and better and better as time goes on. I can't see how that's going to ever slow down anymore. It's just amazing what you can learn and who can teach you as you start trying to say, well, I want to learn this, and I need to learn this, and I need to learn this. So my hope with these weekly gatherings, we're doing a new show series every Friday night on our new all-star sales team, which we're building within our own database. People who are members of the ID Network and learn how to sell our systems via social media is the goal now. I would like, before I check out, I'd like to have a sales and marketing team that supports Tammy and Profitable Hobbies in a way that she can't do just on her own. And the ability to multiply our exposure all over the world it's just going to be fun. I can't think of anything more fun than figuring out how to make it work. When Tam and I talk about how great it's been in our lives to bump into people and then sell them a system and then hold their hand to the point they can actually make something work, is just a joy. There is nothing more satisfying than a phone call or an interaction from you guys when you make something work and it works well. And we've got a lot of success stories. We really have had quite a journey. I call it Our Journey TV. The idea that you can take a hobby and turn it into a business and then really excel at some skill opens up such amazing doors in the economy, and there's very few people going after that anymore. The future of handmade things is pretty in question because of technology, and yet there always will be demand for somebody's work that has excelled at what they do. And I got a couple of things I got to show you and brag about a little bit here tonight. My brand new phone is here. Da 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 da. I got my new Note 5. And the very first thing on it is Success Mountain. The show has already showed up tonight. Can you see that? Cool, huh? And we're trying to transfer all my junk on this old phone onto the new one now. And the girl finally says, well, look, why don't you take it home? There's so much on there. Take it home and you do that yourself. So I am going to be busy from now on with my new super fast 64 gig S-Note phone. Going to be fun. I'll keep you informed of my, well, I won't tell you my failures. I'll just tell you the successes. How's that? We had a fun thing today. I went over to see the boys, and Chris gave me an envelope. And it's addressed to Paragrave Corporation, 1455 West Center Street. We were there for years and years. And this guy had found us in one of our old magazine ads somewhere. And so then he's written me this letter. And it's on September 8th. He just sent the letter out, and he wants to know more about what we do. He says, I do something similar, and I've done it for many years, but I have not learned how to use the tracing paper like you do it. And he hasn't have really a clue about the old high speed yet. But the letter he sent to the old company went to the people that are in our old building now, just accidentally happened to make all the promotional t-shirts and hats and clothing for the employees with Lance and Chris. And so inadvertently, this letter would never have found its way to us, except for the fact that this guy knew who we were. He knew that was Lance and Chris, and so he got the letter and then to them, and then today my boys gave it to me. And this is now an inquiry. This is somebody that wants to know more about what we're doing, and they saw us 1,800 years ago and who knows what, where sourced some old magazine likely, and wants to know more about what we're doing. And what we've talked about in these Friday shows, we've done 6 of these shows now, and we've got 2 more to go, and trying to help you begin to learn how to sell a system, is that once you bump into this kind of potential, it is flipping everywhere. I talked to you just before about when we went into Costco to sign up for our Costco membership. The young man, I asked him, I says, how long you work for Costco? He says, about 15 years. I says, what are you going to do when you retire? And he just goes, oh, gosh, I don't know. And I said, okay, go to profitablehobbies.com and take a look. Because if you start a profitable hobby now, when you get to your retirement point, then it should be going enough that you can then justify moving from your as-is world to something better as you retire. And it's so easy to bump into the possibility and potential of someone who likes what it is we like. There's 80 million people our age struggling out there tonight trying to figure out, what can I do with the rest of my precious life? what do I do with this from now till I'm gone? This is kind of the icing on the cake time. And if you're not thinking and planning and working on something you love doing, I think you're making a tremendous mistake. So as we fire up the show tonight, and I'm going to try and present to you what I think is couple of our better stories. So let me grab my stuff here and get this webinar up. Which one is it? Success. There we are, right there. Okay, here we go. I'm ready to roll. Except I don't want to do that. Let's see, is it this one here? Yeah, there we go. When I started putting these shows together years ago, learning how to do PowerPoints and learning how to put things together that could be informative, boy, there's a lot of struggle. There's things that you just don't know when you're beginning. And it takes time for you to gradually figure those things out. And we stumbled onto it years and years ago. Keith Hone basically started in the direction of anything's possible one step at a time. And it's become kind of the center concept, a mantra for Keith Hone. If you take it one step at a time, it's possible. And most of us just don't do that. We don't bother to do that. We don't make the effort and stay with it. And as the I&E network came up and it became a concept that would allow people to support each other instead of going after success alone, our whole effort and quest is to develop it together. Take talented people and show them ways and opportunities to do better in the marketplace. Gary Price is one of our original founding members, is a nationally ranked and renowned sculptor, and has come up with all kinds. He did our hands, that is the logo for the group, and I used this idea of, he did the little kid on the paper kite or paper airplane. This is a piece for tombstones on the headstones of young kids that are taken early in life. He's got several of those pieces that are so profound, they're so attractive. And when you can spot something that you like and then figure out a way to pull it into your life, the trick is to just hang on to the concept long enough, take it one step at a time until you get each thing taken care of. And most people just aren't willing to do things that way. If it's easy and fast, hey, I'm all over it. But if it's going to take a little time, then reasoning and time and money and consideration, those things tend to blow really great ideas completely out the window. One of my favorite concepts in my life is the peacock feather. It was the great question when it comes to evolution. Peacock feathers are painted on the walls of Egypt and are identical to peacock feathers now. But the end of these feathers is extremely complex. One of the most incredible RNA and DNA engineering feats is to put that iridescence right there in the middle and then have it grow with this color here and then this color here and that color there, and then these long barbs that fill out and interlocked enough to turn it into a feather. It just shouldn't happen. If evolution worked the way it does, then the peacock feather should not be the same now. At some point it would have evolved and drifted into something else, and yet it has not. And so Darwin, in letters to a couple of his friends, said the peacock feather was the one thing that just wrecked his theory of evolution, because it shouldn't be. It's just something that complex should have a chance of evolving any more than most things. And so I like to look at that as an idea of saying, well, I don't know a human being yet that has it all figured out. Every one of us are just doing the best we can with what our circumstances are and what our hopes and dreams become. And yet I don't see how you can live and go forward without a dream to come true. If you can literally realize right from the beginning that it's likely to be uphill. This is the biggest mountain in our valley. We've got 7 major mountains around this valley, and it's called Timpanogos, and it's 11,000 feet up there. So anybody had a friend hike it last weekend. Anybody going to take on that kind of a climb needs to know, I think, to begin with, that it's a fairly challenging climb. And success in anything worthwhile requires that. Gary also did the hands logo that we use for the icon for I&E Network, and coming up with the idea of a supportive cooperative to help each other do a better job and reach further into the marketplace because we're doing it together, to me, makes an awful lot of sense. I didn't see that Lance was on yet tonight, but I wanted to kind of take a look at what happens here with people who start out from an amateur position and are just getting better and better and better at their work. And I didn't look at his numbers before the show tonight, but I'm going to go back and look at them and see, from 489 followers and 237,000 views now, where is he? And does this mixture with those of us that are playing with digital media, does that help? Does that up the exposure level of you and your individual studio? And I don't see how you can ignore that anymore. Tammy and I talk often about Lance Larson, or not Lance Larson, Lance Turner, I'm sorry. I got that name, that's embarrassing. Lance Turner is the guy that invented Smokey Bear and Charlie Sunkist Tuna as icons in the advertising world. And very, very famous designer, is an architect as well. And Lance won 3rd place in the World Woodcarving Championships before any of us have even got involved. And so most of the success stories that have done extremely well in that high end would put it out by interacting with those of us that knew Lance. And when they got to a certain point, he would coach them, particularly on color. And Greg Woodard Greg's won the World Championship more times than anybody else, and he gives Lance Turner the credit for helping him understand color and color combinations better. And this is from down behind Lance's home, and this is his studio that was off to the north side of his house. And he just had such a beautiful place. It was so delightful to go over to his studio and spend a little time with him, which we got to do about marketing. He was just brilliant when it come to making things connect with the marketplace. And so we started sharing what he was teaching us, the kinds of things that helped him do a better job with his own work. These are all pastels. He just zeroed in on pastels the last few years of his life. Would get up every morning at 2 or 3 o'clock and sketch and draw his pastels until about 9 every morning. And he just loved that period of time. It was the most interesting. His wife passed away, and he just zeroed in on it and pushed it like crazy. And when you could see how far he came in that period of time and realize what he'd done over his lifetime, you start having a tremendous amount of respect for the tools of his trade. As a draftsman, these were his really important tools. And Tam and I went over the night that they were selling. The family invited me to come over and look at the things they were selling out, and no one in the family had picked his tools. I still have them. It's T-Square and his graphic design tools. God, I could have died. I was so thrilled. Just could not believe somebody had overlooked what made him famous, actually. So, as you move forward, and I start these shows, and then we'll go through the fall shows, and then we'll take the Christmas holidays off, and then we'll start into what I call the Master's Training Program series in January. and do our master shows. But I hope to get you a little bit of a degree in advanced business and marketing concepts between now and next May, that you literally sharpen the saw and learn how to use these business tools of art that are a little bit more sophisticated than. But I you with the dream, because if you don't know where you're going and then you don't have a way of measuring it, it's really difficult to kind of stay with it. And so we start in the direction of a really solid dream of where you're headed. I talk constantly in my new book series, Opportunity Intersection, discusses your as-is world, and then how do you build a bridge over to a better world. And to take an idea and go from the dream part and chasing the dream and plugging in the work part to get the point where both your life and your living are exactly where you'd like it to be, is what should consume your days. All happiness depends on a leisurely breakfast. Yeah, I take you back through my journal because this is stuff that I dearly love. These are things I found years ago, concepts that I just absolutely just turned me on personally. And I put them in my working journal to have them at some point eventually rub off to the point that I begin to realize how significant the start of a day can be over how it often is. And unless you start spotting the potential of what you could do better, you're not likely to do a whole lot better. If you could start every day with one small positive thought, can you imagine how your morning might change your whole day? What if we could personally set the tone of each day? And that gradually becomes a habit. It's a way of getting your day going and saying, this is probably more helpful to living a really thoughtful, positive life than not. The truth is, it's not what we do once in a while that shapes our lives, but what we do consistently. And everybody knows this. I mean, it's not just Tony Robbins bragging about and promoting. He's made millions off this idea. The fact that we've got to remind ourselves and put it in our lives effectively to the point it actually starts to become how we do things. And that, to me, is the degree of success that you can expect out of your life. And when we talk about it in our show series, our All-Star Training Program, we've been going through Og Mandino's book, the Greatest Salesman in the World, and has the 10 scrolls. And you're supposed to read those scrolls 3 times a day for a month, each scroll. But most people won't do that. They don't understand how powerful it is when it starts to impact you consistently, over and over again. Then you start changing your thinking, then you start changing your actions, and you start affecting your results. But it takes too much time and it's too much trouble, and I don't want to bother with that. This is Keith Hone. He was our first master in our program, and Keith and Tammy started the hands-on company training courses over at Keith's studio in 1991. And this man single-handedly has touched so many people's lives. You just need to know and remember the name Keith Hone. Because when Keith started playing with us, he didn't know much about high speed, and neither did we. He had one of the first kits in our organization, and he knew woodworking really well, but he was the one that pioneered much of the woodworking techniques. And when he started coming into my courses and he would start talking about how one step at a time, there's just nothing you can't figure out. There's nothing you can't overcome. There's nothing you can't accomplish if you stick to it one step at a time. This was my Christmas gift one year. Took one of these walnut triangles and made a nameplate for me, and on the back of it he carved one step at a time. This is how the deer muscles change us from step to step. Oh, what a treasure. This is one of the neatest things in my whole life. But to be able to carve it and pass it on as a gift is something that Keith excelled at. He worked at elevating his skills, as has done his son Craig. They're both masters in the I&E network, have just gone on and on and on, and they still, after these 30 years later, are still producing such exotic art. So when someone like Keith says to you, I like what it does to my soul, there's something absolutely incredible about developing your skill to the point that your art expression gets better and better and better. And if you stick to the things that you like most and don't ever let go of that thread of interest, it's unbelievable what you can put together and what you can pull off. From the early days when we were just getting the training program started, it required this hellacious stick-to-itiveness, one step at a time, but you just will not back off. And if you'll consistently move yourself forward and do something every day that will help and grow your skills, eventually you'll get really good at something. And Keith just pioneered that whole attitude, that whole different effort. And this is the famous home studio. We've taught over 3,000 students in our years, and just taught Kim, who came up from the Bahamas and spent a week with me. And what an incredible time we had. And she's playing around with a new concept that's going to just blow the doors off. And when we can see how everyone really can learn to do something, it's just a matter of stick-to-itiveness really is the secret. This young lady right here makes 60 grand a year off of eBay. And she came specifically to personalize what she was already selling. And she says, I don't think there's any question I'm going to double my sales now. And it's just almost the last person you'd expect to bump into that was already really, really, really doing well. And when we go back over our history, Tamara started the training program for Profitable Hobbies. It was then Paragrave and became Paragraphics, and now it's Profitable Hobbies. And every one of these people have gone on and exceeded extremely well. Greg Woodard, Keith Holm, Craig, Tamara, and then Sarah's our first master in our program to pass away. And Mrs. Bert Graub was a famous cartoonist from the West Coast. And Anthony was the head photographer for Easy Rider magazine. This is our bunch. This is our gang. And all they did is pick up a thread of interest and stay with it. Jim Sig does incredible knives. Handmade, hand-engraved knives. And Al Hones, one of the leading Western furniture designers now, he and Greg Woodard both do a lot of bronze, clay into bronze sculpting now. Just didn't even know they had it in them to begin with. Tammy said studying and working with Keith has been a treasure of her life. It's Keith's kind of Tammy's other dad. They have grown up together and pioneered all of the hands-on training courses and opened up so many doors for so many other people. And what you need to look at where you are is considering carefully what you've already done with us, and then look at what would be the opportunity for you if you started to teach. Because we didn't think of that to begin with, but the more we did it, the better we got at it, and the more people wanted to learn that way. And so there's video information training that I started doing. I did 36 videos over a 3-year period, one a month for 3 years, to kind of get a library going of information that would help people basically learn even faster. And we didn't know what we're doing to begin with, but we just pursued it, and we pursued it, and we pursued it. Now the other mantra came from Keith, where he was taking a class, how to do sculpting, and the artist who was teaching the class says, how many of you want to make any money at it? And a couple of them all raised their hands. And he said, okay, he says, there's a real line in the sand as how much time you actually put into the learning process will be largely how this responds. And there was a guy in the class that said he put an hour a day into his learning his skills, and Keith said, I just mentally decided I could probably do twice that. And so he made himself a commitment that day that he was going to hit it 2 hours a day. Every day he would try it, and even if he missed a day, he would make it up. He literally put himself in the driver's seat and said, I'm going to push this. I'm going to uncover my abilities with a 2 hour a day commitment. Now, we've kind of looked at this concept for a long time, because if your investment in your new hobby-based business is less than 2 hours a day, it's probably going to stay a hobby. It requires a dedicated and consistent effort. There's just no way around it. Yeah, not easy, but it is for sure worth it. You might become, who might you become if you make the decision and finally dedicate yourself to take on very challenging tasks. Not the easy stuff, the difficult things. That's where progress really lies for every one of us. When Keith designed and came up with this presentation piece, they're called release, so they take a block of wood and then carve the rest of the piece out of it. And he started doing these squirrels and selling them in Sedona, Arizona. That's what launched his whole name and reputation, was something that was fairly specific and identifiable, and it just caught on like crazy. And so the family has continued to do these released kind of carvings, and artwork has basically been a honed kind of thing ever since. And Keith was so good. He's a natural-born teacher to begin with, but boy, he could just talk to you and never discourage you, never upset you, constantly encourage you to do better and to look better and to practice more without tearing up your soul. And so the time with Keith was just incredible for Tam and I to sit and watch over the years his effectiveness with people at lifting their skills beyond what they even thought they could do, and get it further and further and further into the marketplace. And so the idea and attitude in our circle is to literally do not allow yourself to be tricked into thinking it's fast and easy. There's just nothing that is, nothing worthwhile. And I always kind of bring up the fact that Keith only has one fault in his whole life that he's one of the most incredibly straight arrow people ever put on this earth, and yet he likes Pepsis more than he does Coca-Cola. And I never could figure out how he could be a Pepsi drinker and succeed in art, period. But we had a lot of fun with that. He had some cancer taken off his face right here, and he got really bruised. So we went out and took a picture together of me beating up on him over Coca-Cola. Keith was a tree nut. Everywhere you went with him, he would notice the trees and then collect the leaves. And we were in, where were we? Colorado someplace. And we found this card and brought it back to him. Dear friend, stand tall and proud, sink your roots deeply into the earth, reflect the light of your true nature. Think long term, go out on a limb, remember your place among all living beings, and embrace with joy the changing seasons, for each yields its own abundance. The energy and birth of spring, the growth of contentment of summer, the wisdom of let go like leaves in the fall, and the rest in the quiet renewal of winter. Feel the wind and the sun and delight in their presence. Look up the moon that shines down upon you and the mystery of the stars at night. Seek nourishment from the good things in life, its simple pleasures, earth, fresh light, fresh air, light. Be content with your natural beauty. Drink plenty of water and let your limbs sway and dance in the breezes. Be flexible and remember your roots and enjoy the view. And if this doesn't just describe Keith Holmes' lifestyle, I don't know what does. He lives this way. This is the kind of person that he is, and I think it's why he's so particularly effective, helping to teach you how to sculpt and shape and carve and work with this high-speed tool. Because he would figure it out. If you told him it wouldn't work, he would just knock himself out at figuring out how to do it. And the worst thing to do is don't tell him you can't do it. That old boy, if you told him it wouldn't work, there's no way it would work, he would prove you wrong. I just can freaking guarantee you. What a contribution Keith has made to this whole concept. Doris had one of her carvings in the state fair. We went up to the state fair Saturday, and she'd entered and won her ribbon, her best of show ribbon. And Doris is retired from a federal government job in the fisheries biologist for the federal government, and now she's going to go develop her own passionate, profitable hobby. And she's been training and training and training and training, and just doing extremely well with her own skills and individual abilities. And it's so fun to see her gradually start to get her own recognition now. Keith and Doris, or Dee McNeely, had a home in Vegas and used to be patients of mine, and her husband, Doc's right back here in the back. And they used to be patients of mine back in the days when I was dentisting, and they wanted to start a training program in Vegas, and so we opened the doors and started letting the network come to Las Vegas to teach. This is Bill Janney when Bill first got started, and Keith Holm, and oh gosh, I forgot this young man's Griffiths. Wade Griffiths started teaching. This is Doc Frank from Nashville, Tennessee. We just had so much fun with people, and so many people wanted to come to Vegas to teach or to learn rather than to come to the company. So Keith did that a lot of years. He'd spend the winter in Las Vegas. But his great fascination was trees, and he just never met a tree that he didn't like. So that led him then to his passionate combination of leaves and trees together. And when I remember distinctly when Keith started carving leaves, just how would you render them? How would you shape them? How would you finish them? What made it look exotic? What enhanced the carving and the ability to make them look better? And he just worked it and worked it and worked it. He worked on this design for years, literally trying to reshape it and make it look more attractive. What can I do to put this in better light and better perspective? And I just don't know many people that will stay with something that long. They don't see the value, the long-term value of getting extremely good at what you do. So if you put a pattern on a piece of metal and you're doing what Jay does on motorcycles, there ought to be a thing inside of you that just never quite satisfied. There's always a better way to do everything, to make it look better, to help it finish better, to have it last longer. And these were the large-scale carvings that we had roughed out with a computer, and then you'd come in and finish them up. And oh my gosh, this just turned people on no end. But then he never met a feather he didn't like either. He just was a feather nut also. So birds and feathers constantly in his life. And this was a carving he did out of a blank of alder. Such an incredibly fun guy. And to watch his skills develop and then open the door to his training and his sharing what he'd learned how to do was one of the really great concepts that we bumped into in the process. I found this quote in a Covey book that was done by a photographer named Roger Merrill in our area. And it became, it's the end of step 4, I think, in my book. But it always hits me really hard. It says, early in my career, I came across the words of John Muir, the father of our national parks. I love nature, but my vision of wilderness was nowhere near the ecstatic level of his. So I walked in his footsteps for a year and a half, and it changed my life and soul forever. First thing I discovered was that it was my eyes that were clouded, and that nature and life really were just as beautiful as Muir had described, if I was open enough to see that. The second thing I discovered was Muir. Here was a man who walked in nature, saw its beauty, and let it fill him up. He overflowed, and it came out in everything he did. in the way that he hiked the mountains, in his political activism, in his writing, in his business. It all came out of his entire life. Muir was a man who made his life his art. And that was a staggering concept for me. Making my life my art became one of the cornerstones of my creative vision. If you didn't take anything more than this idea tonight and write it with a Sharpie on your bathroom mirror till it burns a hole in your brain, making your life your art is what it ought to be about from now till we're gone. How could you do your life any better than that? And then learning to share your art with the world is just such an incredibly good way to go. Keith taught and influenced Joe Cummings as he began to get started, and this was his first bronze casting of his carving. He carved this walnut panel for a fireplace mantel, and he got $10,000 for the carving for the fireplace, and then he turned around and had it cast and multiplied that into casting, and he sold 4 more that I'm aware of, 4 more of these for 5,000 apiece. So his carving ended up bringing about 30 grand for him. But when you can see what happens between the influence from one to another to others, both these guys teach, well, we all do, all 4 of us teach, and have made that a distinct part of our futures as well. Because once you learn how to do some of this stuff, my God, it's powerful to teach other people what to do. Keith started going after carvings and decorative artwork on the cabinet door panels that his brother made. They had a cabinet business, and he learned how to do the embellishment and the carving on those panels. So this was a cabinet tabletop, and Keith drop relief carved these leaves right into the finished wood surface. Learned how to do it, learned how to then relief carve here, and then stain and finish and seal it and be done. Changed how all this power carving is actually done dramatically. In January, I'll start the Aim Your Life series, which is basically a passionate prescription how to improve your own individual circumstance and dramatically change this year. Don't be content with how it's been. If there's circumstances in your as-is world you don't like, pick out those that you can change and alter and fix, and then shift your life to something better. One step at a time, it's possible. The trick is just your constant, consistent, persistent, and determined, focused efforts will make anything work. And from 1991 to now, it's impossible to see how much influence there's been. Such humble roots and humble beginnings has just reached out across this entire world, and what a fun thing to have been a part of. But as long as you can make this your mantra and realize it isn't the path of least resistance, it is taking on the challenges, saying, okay, I can do this once, but can you do it 10 times and do it better and better and better and better each time? When Keith came in and began to discover this is an overlay put on a cabinet door, so this could be any graphic, but he learned to shadow the background. And if you don't texture and contrast this background from the door itself to the artwork, then it looks glued on. And he wanted it to look like it came out of full relief. And eventually he figured out how to put this shadow in behind, tiny, tiny detailed shadow, so it sucks in more stain and then goes darker and darker. Little subtle tricks, but oh, do they work. And then he pioneered all the artificial overlay, inlay techniques of casting materials that will go in and help it look like embedded ivory. Accomplished so much and contributed so much, it's really hard to thank him for all the contribution that he's done. And his ability to render art and make it look really good is extraordinary. There's just nobody better. We went on the road and met a lot of our customers, and courses Tammy and Keith went all over the world, all over North America to teach. And then we were in Lake Tahoe for this trip, and it kind of fun when you can get paid to go play. But one step at a time will change your future. Nick's on here tonight with us, and Nick was here with, oh, what in the world was his name? This is the partner of Sam Walton. He helped Sam build his first stores and came out to take a class with us. If you can just realize what you're after is your own uniqueness, don't accept what has happened thus far in your life and say that's all there is to you, because there's a possibility there's so much more. Brian Beatty called me today and talked about what we've been posting on Google Plus and then how things have worked for him at the show. He's demonstrating at the State Fair this whole week, and he called me and he says, Lou, nah, I've done something you've never done, I'll bet. And we were laughing now, in his 10 years now of building his name and reputation. I've been banging on that door for 40 years, but I says, Brian's done more in 10 than I've done in 40. And he says, I got to teach a blind man how to carve an eggshell today. This guy was blind, and Brian sat him down and held the drill and held his hands and held the egg and taught him literally how to carve an eggshell. And they happened to photograph it. Looks like maybe there'll be an article come out about it. But he says, all I did was stretch the limits of what you think you can do as to what maybe you actually could do. And so as I finish up tonight and talk a little bit more about the hazards of being right-brained, it's unbelievably challenging to be a right-brained person because you're interested in everything. And we can be so easily distracted as right-brained people. One minute we're on one path and the next minute we're on another. And so you have to literally look at that and say, well, if you have to decide that your highest priorities are, and have the courage, pleasantly smiling unapologetically, to say no to everything else, and the way to do that is by having a bigger yes burning inside of you, maybe that will help you overcome. Covey was our friend and lived in this neighborhood and did extremely well with his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and then was killed in a bicycle accident a couple of years ago. But when you see a quote like this that helps you begin to sense and realize what maybe you need to do, is to say no to other things and really trigger this burning, this bigger burning inside of yourself. See if you can't pull that off. Each of us, we are the most challenging problem. The degree is to concentrate on what you express is your art, make your life your art, not try and impress. It's a good concept, guys. Something really important. And then start, think, analyze, plan, try, do, and do again, and keep on trying. That is how it works. That right there is what interrupts most people's success. They literally get sucked off into something else and can't stay with it until they actually improve their circumstances. So to define what's going on, then build a model, then simulate the model, then deploy the action, execute, monitor, check it out, analyze what's going on and optimize that, and then redo the cycle. And once you get your life into this kind of a mentality of a way of going at things, you've got a really good chance of changing and finishing. But the miracle always is that I finished, is not the miracle, is that I had the courage to start in the first place. Ain't that good? Ooh, I like that. When you take on the 7 steps of Success Mountain, an opportunity intersection, you move from a dream to a plan and a map, and then you begin to prepare and gather, and eventually you should launch your effort. And the launch is the critical moment, because that's the time you never retreat, you never go back, My life is going this way from now on. It's a huge, huge, huge decision. This is what lights that fire that Steve Covey was talking about. And from then on, you got to check your direction, see how you're doing, learn to solve your problems creatively, and then learn to invest and trade well in the marketplace. I made this ladder, and I've used it in my own life and shared it for years now. A little dream will begin to build some hope, and a little dream with some hope will begin to build some faith. And if you got a dream and some hope and faith, and then you start doing the trying and doing, the trying and doing is going to produce some experience. And no matter how this experience turns out, it should help you with judgment. And that judgment should then lead you to true capacity. This is not where you're paid in the economy. This is where you're paid in the economy. And I'm sorry, but it is an uphill climb. It's as predictable as anything I've ever bumped into in my whole life. When Gary came up with the idea of doing the Native Americans helping each other climb right straight up the cliff, the title of this piece is They Rise Highest Who Lift As They Go. And what we didn't see to begin with is what's so wonderful about the I&E network now is we really can help each other. And to the degree you lift and help another, you climb even more. I'm going to stick with the Artistic Business Academy till I'm dead. It just is so important that you learn business skills along with your art skills. Your talent is one thing, your ability and capacity with business is another. So, if you sit and look at your own circumstances right now and say, okay, what next is on my list? If you don't have a list, then, whoa, we need to do some really significant thinking and considering of what most next would help your career, what most next would help your future. Covey always said the real secret to success is begin with the end in mind. This is your as-is world here. Begin with the end in mind, where you're trying to target, where you want to get to, and then connect the dots between where you are and where you'd like to be. Begin with the end in mind. I like the idea of the creative zoo. I still not completely fleshed it out, but it sounds like a fun concept to me. Whether you're using your talents to write a book or learn to draw or learn to paint, learn to sculpt, learn to build, learn to craft, and produce something is such an important thing. You will, the more you use your individual creativity and productivity, the more the eternity seems to enforce the fact inside that I should have been doing this my whole life. As I started to learn to sketch, I haven't had anything turn me on more than that. I love to sit down and sketch something new. And it'll hit me like a train. I'm just busy doing other things, and all of a sudden I'll see something and I'll go, oh, I wonder if I can draw that now. And to get to the point where I'm fairly good at it is just a thrill, because I lived years not knowing that I had that talent and ability inside of me. Work to think takes time and energy to finally rethink beyond your ordinary thoughts in your past. New ideas produce new results. Do not fear the new ideas. Every one of those that have succeeded, they started out as an amateur and have moved to the mastery of something. It's one incredibly fun bunch of people to bump into. There's Ronnie right there, guys. And when you begin to realize that you can do this, there is a reason to master something. You have really got everything within your own range to lift your life beyond what you've thought of up to this point. And I think, why not do that with what precious time you have left? Isn't that something that you could pull into your life? When Steve started, he is the guy out in the islands in the middle of the Pacific Ocean on your way to Canada and Alaska, and he's carving fossilized ivory, and oh God, he's got just, his work is just astounding. But it wasn't that way when he began. When Steve Willie first took my class with me, his first efforts to carve an eggshell were a little frustrating, to say the least, except when you stay with it. Just don't back off. Just don't back off. You like something like this, Lance has been just an example to us all. It's been so fun to watch him improve. His individual circumstances this last couple of years has just been phenomenal. And he started his own little community, and I was also going to go look tonight and see how many members in his community now. I'll check it here in a little bit, and we'll talk about it next week in the class. But it just starts small. Everything does. But then when you push it into the marketplace, it gets a little stronger, and it gets a little stronger, and you get your more name and reputation. And all of a sudden, you start getting commissions that just knock your socks off from people and clients and customers who really like what it is that you do. It's impossible, says pride. It's risky, says experience. It's pointless, says reason. Give it a try, whispers the heart. And from 1983 to now, all I did was stay with this whispers of the heart thing. Everyone in the world thought I was completely crazy to leave dentistry and go chase a hobby. And all I can answer now is, can you imagine? I sat with my sons today working on the new handpiece and looking at the productivity. We make over 50,000 parts a day in that building now. And they've just gone on into all kinds of other opportunities, and the kids are just way beyond what we started with. But what if I'd have quit along the way? Got a chance yesterday to tell the story of my first show when the lady dropped her purse and my eggs broke everything I had on display at the moment, and just crushed my soul within the first hour or two of the very first show. And I came so close to just flat quitting. I was trying to figure out a way to pick up my stuff and throw it in my car and go home, because she just accidentally dropped her purse in my display case and just was ridiculing me no end. And I kept thinking, like, God, I don't need this kind of abuse. But then I cleaned up my mess at the encouragement of my neighbor and put out my inventory and started again and stayed with it, and I sold 34 $100 eggshells in the next 2 days. And that $3,400 show of doing something where people actually liked me instead of dentistry, I just was hooked from then on. And everybody who succeeded with, to the degree that they want, that are participating in this show tonight and could sit down and tell you their story, have similar stories, similar circumstances where they just flat could have quit. And often you'll find that it's our interaction with each other that keeps us going. And I think that may be what we've discovered that's most important. It feels to me like what we're doing together is still the best part of this entire equation. So, as you sit down and reevaluate your circumstances, and I go through these next series of shows this fall, what I'm trying to do is light a fire that you've never felt nor seen before. Reach beyond your own view and vision of your personal circumstances and say, how is there a way that I can do something better, something significant, something that gives me back more than even income? And see if I can't pioneer something really, really new with my own life and my own experiences on in the future, okay? Kind of cool. Appreciate all of you and your participation tonight, and I hope that there's enough here to give you some thought that will help open new doors for you, and that we can kind of connect and interact via the internet or via Tammy on the 800 number. We're starting to bump into more and more people because of our interaction with Google+, and I want that to continue. If you're not getting onto the web on a regular basis every day and +1ing and reposting and learning how Google+ works, please make that occasion. Make that part of your 2-hour dedication to your new directions with your hobby-based business this year. And let's see if we can't have some incredibly good stories to talk about by May of next year, that we've opened new doors of opportunity for every one of you. Any comment quick? Ron, you got something you want to throw in here tonight, or Mel?
Yeah, I heard a phrase today, and it kind of, I remembered it when you were talking about Keith Hone and putting the time in and not running from one thing to another. The guys called it chasing butterflies. And it's like and I related to it, hearing you talking, and it's like a butterfly comes in front of you and it rests on a flower, and then it goes to another one, and you follow it,
You
and
go.
then you
Yeah.
follow it over here, and you follow it over there. And what happens is a lot of people, they get involved with the tool, and they oh, I like doing this, and
Yeah.
then somebody does something and say, oh boy, I would like to do that, and then they're over here doing that, and they're chasing that butterfly all over the place, and they're not really accomplishing anything. Find something you have a passion for and settle on it, and later on experiment a little bit. Okay, you got to broaden your talents, but pick something that you're really passionate about and stick with it and keep doing it on that 2 hours a day that Keith came up with, and that'll get you to where you want to go.
Absolutely. Words of wisdom. Mel, what do you think?
Yeah. Well, what I think is he hit it right on the nail head. You know, you just got to keep at it and don't be afraid of anything or try anything. It's not, I wish I could, I wish I could, I wish I could, or I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, like Little Train did. It's, I know I can, and I'm going to do it.
Yeah. We limit ourselves. You cannot blame this on anybody else. We're our own worst problem, and I think that's true for every one of us.
Yeah, I got such a dilemma this coming Monday that the local Veterans Administration wants to officially present my third place national ribbon
National recognition.
to me.
Oh, too bad. We'll make sure there's somebody there that can get some freaking pictures of the moment. Don't miss this one. It's a big deal, Mel. In case all of you don't know, Mel won the National Veterans Art Competition in third place. That's a big deal, Mel. That's going to be fun for you.
Yeah, I think there were 153 hospitals around the nation that participated with about 3,300 veterans.
Wow. That is. That's absolutely amazing. Well, we all know you deserved it. You should have had first place. I don't know why in the world. But
Yeah, you
to
got to
be
leave
in,
it up to the judges, and
being in the top three is pretty subjective. Now, congratulations to you, my friend. No one's worked harder, and no one deserves it more than you. Been really, really great.
work hard.
Yeah,
Not
well,
me.
that's true for us. Yeah,
Don't play.
having a good time is our job. Huh? Most of us don't play or don't work very hard very much. Tam, have you got something you want to throw in tonight before we wrap it up? Not getting your audio. Undo your microphone, Tam.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yep, there you go.
Okay. This was a nostalgic night for me. I've truly stories on the road. I wanted to show you. I don't know if you guys could see or if I'm. Can you see that well enough?
Not yet. Oh, yeah,
Okay.
there we go.
Okay. All right. This is a leaf that Keith did for me, and he's done the back side and the front side, and I've got several different things. But we used to get up in the morning really early and go for a walk, and he would teach me all the leaves and the trees, and we would gather leaves, and talk about the flowers, and he'd hear a bird call, and he could tell me what kind of bird that was. And I learned a lot about carving from Keith, but I learned a lot about life, and I learned a lot about how to treat other people. And you were right, he was a consummate teacher.
Was.
No one that we've enjoyed more in the organization and has gone forward. No one we get more credit for and compliments.
No, that's not right. It was just say, well, let's tweak it right here and see what happens to it. It was never anything negative. It was always positive. I told Elaine one time when we were down in Las Vegas and you were doing a president seminar, and I said, Elaine, if I could have choose my own dad, I would have chose Keith. And it brought tears to her eyes.
Yeah.
But those two people have been he and Elaine have been absolutely incredible people in my life. And Craig and Al, the same thing. I've done shows with them also. And they're both their boys, both Al's boys. Had a ball. I was treated like a queen. So thank you very much for what you did. You did a wonderful job. Thank you.
Yeah, bet. It's easy to talk and brag about Keith Owen.
Yes, it is.
It is. Nick, you've been a part of what we're doing here for years and years. You're one of our masters also. Is there some words of wisdom you want to plunk into this tonight, my friend?
Just to go along with what you've been saying is to keep after it. And I guess one of the things I learned over the years is that my interest lies with the eggshell carving. I do enjoy the wood and doing some of the other things, but ultimately that's
nothing like that surface, is there?
No.
I tell everybody, of all the mediums out there, the one you want to guard the most is the most addictive, is cutting an eggshell. There's just something about it that's just, and Brian and I laughed a little bit about it because we walked into the show at the state fair, and here's Brian's whole case of his stuff, just beautiful stuff, and he has really intricate, tight goose eggs that he carves, just freak me clear out. And I says, I don't dare even try one. They're so far beyond what I've ever been able to do. And he says, well, Lou, he says, of all the people that ought to give it a try. I thought, well, here it is. Take your own medicine, Jensen, because that's kind of how it is. Yeah, it's amazing, amazing mediums. You've done such beautiful things, Nick. And I had a guy ask me this week what was style. You may have saw the comments on Google Plus, and he's a metal worker, our beginning artist in Oklahoma, Jay. And he said, I want to know what branding is. And I tried to help a little, and how do you answer quick and dirty what's branding? How does branding actually work? And I'm just going, I just about bet that most of us in this webinar tonight in the film strip, if we wanted to see Ron's work, we could tell who likely did it. We could see Nick's work, we could likely tell who did it. We could see Mel's work, we probably would know it was Mel's. We probably would know it's Jay's. We probably would know it's Joni's. When you do enough of it and it's your thing you enjoy, somehow that starts to show through. And I think that style is your expression. How you do it is what you should do more of it, whatever it is. Because it's like Al's the most branded person in our whole world. Just drives me crazy because he draws, it looks like Al Holmes. He sculpts, it looks like Al Holmes. If he does furniture, it's Al. It's just how he thinks and how he sees and how he expresses his own work. And I think that's what we're all after. Something that you do that is yours distinctly. And then do it till you drop. So if there's anything we can do to counsel you or help with you, give us a call. Try and interact with us. I hope you'll make this year a challenging year, that you take beyond what you've done so far and move it a notch and a half higher. Raise the bar on your own expression this year. There's got to be some way to improve over what you've done in the past and make the rest of 2015 and 16 a really, really productive time for you, okay? Appreciate all of you. We'll get together a week from tonight and we'll hit the next session. And send me some emails if you got any comments or anything you want to participate with or contribute with. Thank you very much, and we will catch you next week. Good night.